Hagar, the mother of Islam's patriarch. God promised Abraham a son, but Sarah, then called Sarai, had passed the years of childbearing. Sarah decided to give Abraham an heir by having him father a son through her African slave maid Hagar. Of the many handmaidens Sarai had, she evidently saw purity and other excellent qualities in this particular African virgin, because she awarded her the honor of sleeping with her husband to produce a noble heir that she would be proud to call her son. The Bible mentions only that Hagar was a slave in Egypt, but Sarah saw more than a slave in the young woman. In ancient Egypt, the root word in Hagar, Hagar, was the name of queenly sacred women in Hamitic history. The name of this holy matron was conferred on wise young women or Egyptian high priestesses. Therefore, Sarah, in her late 70s, selected this wise and youthful slave girl for her husband to bed so she could have a proper heir. Egyptians had many wars with their southern brothers called Cushites, better known as Ethiopians, and often subdued their women as their slaves. Hagar, however, was not a Cushite. The scriptures refer to her heritage as being Egyptian. Genesis 16, verses 1 through 3, 21, verse 9. To appease the God of Abraham, who plagued this African king's household, Pharaoh sent his choice servants like Hagar as precious gifts to atone for him taking Abraham's wife with the intention of bedding her. This act is called in the King James Version of the Bible to take her to wife. Hagar knew her master was rich and famous and married to such a beautiful woman, yet she was singled out to sleep with him to give him an heir. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai, and Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian. After Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. Genesis 16, verses 1 through 4. Although Canaanite women were abhorrent to Abraham, he had no problem whatsoever being intimate with non-cursed female descendants of Ham, such as Hagar the Egyptian, and later his second wife, Keturah. When Sarah and Abram's Egyptian handmaid found she was pregnant with Abram's child, she swelled with so much pride that she began to disrespect Sarai and did not conceal her contempt. And Sarai said unto Abram, My wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid into thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. But Abram said unto Sarai, Behold, thy maid is in thy hand. Do to her as it pleases thee. And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. Genesis 16, verses 5 through 6. When Abram replied, Do unto her as it pleaseth thee, he was showing Sarai that he cared not for the black slave girl, even though she was forced to serve as his sex slave, and as a result was carrying his half-African, half-Semitic seed. Then Sarai let the full force of her wrath vent upon the young pregnant African, to the point that Hagar ran from the old lady's presence, and Abraham never again slept with his wife's black slave. As a master to a slave, Sarah dealt harshly with her Egyptian servant. Afterwards, the slave girl from the land of Ham was visited by an angel that mentioned her affliction. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. And he will be a wild man, and his hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of his brethren. And Hagar bare Abram a son, and Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. Genesis 16, verses 7 through 15. Notice that the angel did not refer to Ishmael as Abraham's seed or Abraham's son, but solely as his African mother's seed, and referred to her firstborn in relation to Abraham as the lad and not his son. Genesis 16, verse 10, Genesis 21, verses 12 through 20. Therefore, as far as the Holy Scripture is concerned, Hagar is really the matriarchal mother of Islam. God spoke to her by his angel, and she gave her son the name that means God hears. Abraham had two sons, Ishmael, his firstborn by his wife's black slave, and Isaac, who was born to him by his 90-year-old half-sister wife. Genesis 17, verse 17. Yet Jehovah God, YHWH, acknowledged only Isaac as Abraham's seed, ignoring Ishmael's very existence, although he was the firstborn of Abraham and therefore entitled to a no double portion of his father's wealth upon Abraham's death, according to the Semitic custom. Genesis 16, verse 12. To verify this fact, recall that God told Abraham to take thy son, thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and offer him as a burnt sacrifice. Genesis 22, verse 2. Here God ignores Abraham's firstborn, who became the first father of Arabians. Genesis 22, verse 2 shows that the God of Israel is not Allah. God of the Bible is partial toward Jews, Abraham's descendants through Isaac, known as his chosen people. After Abraham gave Ishmael's double portion inheritance to Isaac, contention over the promised land has been brewing in the Mid-East ever since. Ishmael was sent away by his father Abraham with only trinkets. Genesis 25, verse 6, Galatians 4, verse 29. By Semitic custom, it was Ishmael's birthright to have what was given to Isaac, but Sarah, who was in her 90s, would not abide it, stating, This son of the bondwoman shall not be an heir with my son Isaac. Galatians 4, verse 30. She then has Abraham banish Ishmael and his black mother to the desert with a crust of bread and a canteen of water. Genesis 21, verse 10. This reading is from the complete works, Blacks in the Bible, The Original Roots of Biblical Black History and Prophecy of the Races by James H. Warden,